Hello ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary compatriots. I'm Rafe Rickard and welcome back to Superhero Kill Counts. Today we'll be taking a look at The Wolverine, directed by James Mangold and released in 2013. The Wolverine is the second solo outing in the Wolverine trilogy that started with Origins and ended with Logan. This is also the first actual sequel to the original X-Men trilogy, coming out 7 years after The Last Stand. Before we begin, a little backstory on the early development of this movie. A Wolverine sequel was greenlit immediately after Origins turned out to be a box office success, and it would have been directed by Darren Aronofsky, the director of Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan, known for his surreal approach to filmmaking. Now from the start, however, this movie was set to take place in Japan, a country that Wolverine has comic book ties to himself, and most of the filming would be happening in Australia. So about 6 months in, Aronofsky ended up dropping out of the project because he didn't want to spend a lot of time out of the country away from his family. James Mangold signed on to direct and would eventually return to direct Logan, which is why this movie feels so much like a prototype for what Logan would become. In the end, I personally like the way this movie turned out, but it's hard not to imagine what a Wolverine-based psychological horror film would have looked like. Hashtag release the Aronofsky cut. This movie is much more violent than Origins, but it's still rated PG-13, so we won't see any of that sweet, sweet blood until the release of Logan 4 years later. But how many torsos will meet Wolverine's claws during his Tokyo vacay? Let's find out. The movie begins on August 9th, 1945, near the city of Nagasaki in Japan. Logan is being held in a Japanese POW camp when the air raid sirens begin to blare. As the soldiers start to evacuate, one soldier named Ichiro Yashida begins freeing the prisoners, allowing them a chance to escape the oncoming disaster. As he attempts to free our hero, Logan tells him there's no use trying to outrun what's coming, says he'd be safer in the well with him. Yashida leaves Logan behind when his fellow officers line up to carry out seppuku, a Japanese form of suicide meant to restore honor to oneself in death. After watching 3 of his fellow officers follow through with the act, the bomb drops, and just before Yashida can make the final blow, Logan grabs him and tells him to get into the well, where he shields him from the atomic blast. And no, I will not be counting the estimated 80,000 people who died that day as a result of the atomic bomb drop. Yashida watches as Logan heals himself and tries to escape, but Logan tells him it's not safe, leaving them both stuck in there until the air clears. Logan wakes up from his nightmare to find Jean? He's as shocked as we are, and he asks the age-old question.
Can you stay? You know I can't.
He apologizes for what he had to do to her in Last Stand, and vows never to use his claws for violence again. She tells him it's too late to make that promise, and Logan looks down to see his claws plunge deep into her gut. Logan wakes up from his nightmare. Hey, deja vu. In the real world, Logan is living in the woods, and looking like Rob Zombie. As he wanders into town to fetch some supplies, he marks his trail by slashing trees, and crosses paths with an adorable grizzly bear. What he doesn't notice is that he's also being stalked by a mysterious redhead. He passes by some obnoxious hunters, and goes about his shopping. Later that night, Logan's awoken by screaming and gunshots. He comes across a ravaged campsite and some grisly prints in the mud. He tracks down the bear to find it writhing in agony with an arrow in its back. Logan regretfully puts the bear out of its misery and gives the arrow a good whiff while he's at it. He tracks the arrow's owner back to a local bar and finds one of those obnoxious hunters from earlier. He's boasting about how he took down a grizzly after it attacked him and killed his friends. Now Logan mentions that the bear killed 5 people, so I think that's a safe number to put on the count. Logan approaches the hunter and stabs him through the hand with the arrow, explaining that it was illegally dipped in poison before the bear was shot. The poison then seeped into the bear, causing it to go on a murder spree. And on top of that, he's upset that the hunter just ran away, leaving the bear to die slowly and painfully. The hunter smashes a bottle over Logan's head, and that's enough for him to apparently break his solemn vow.
Sorry, Jean.
He's stopped, however, by the mysterious redhead from earlier. She tells him that killing the hunters would be useless, as she knows they're all going to be dead soon anyway. They pull a gun on her and she unsheaths a katana, and after intimidating the ruffians, she tells Logan to meet her around back. She introduces herself as Yukio, and says that she works for Yashida. She also mentions that Yashida is dying, and he wants to say his goodbyes to Logan in person, so that he can thank him for saving his life all those years ago. Logan tells her there's no way he's going to Japan, but after Yukio convinces him that maybe he and Yashida aren't so different.
You're a soldier, and you seek what all soldiers do.
And what's that?
An honorable death. An end to your pain.
He agrees to the meeting. Yukio is played by Rila Fukushima. One fun fact is that she played Katana in Arrow, and another fun fact is that I love her. On the plane, Logan asks Yukio how she knew those hunters were going to die. She vaguely implies that she's a mutant who has the ability to see the deaths of people that she meets. Kind of a fucked up power, if you ask me. Upon arriving in Tokyo, Logan notices that Yashida has sort of become the big man on campus. After the war, he became an incredibly successful businessman, whose name is plastered all over the city. In fact, he is so popular that even the Yakuza want to pay a visit to him, explaining why his place is surrounded by armed guards 24/7.
Hip replacement.
As they prepare for Logan's meeting with Yashida, they catch him having a fraught conversation with his granddaughter Mariko, who leaves the room crying. Yukio goes to console her and find out what's wrong, but Mariko prefers not to tell.
Alright then, keep your secrets.
What she does say, however, is that Logan cannot see Yashida looking like a caveman. After a shave and a haircut, 2 bits, he's ready to say farewell. Yashida asks his oncologist, Dr. Green, to give them the room, and Logan notices some very Matrix-looking metal bugs crawling around in Yashida's heart. Yashida confides in Logan that he didn't just call him there to thank him, but he has a proposition for him. Believing Logan to have nothing left to live for after surviving for over a century, he offers Logan something he has always wanted: mortality. Yashida has discovered a way to pass Logan's healing ability to another person. He wants to take on Logan's burden and give him the opportunity to grow old and die naturally. Logan refuses the offer out of kindness because he knows that immortality is a curse.
You don't want what I've got.
But not even Yashida's begging can change his mind. As the monitors start to go wild, Dr. Green ushers Logan and Yukio out of the room. They walk out to see Mariko having a heated argument with her father Shingen, which culminates in him slapping her across the face, so that's how we know he's a dick. She runs off to attempt suicide, but Logan catches her before she can jump. Afterwards, Yukio explains her relationship to Mariko. When she was a child, she was homeless and starving. Yashida found her one day and took her in as his own, so that Mariko could have a companion. They've been as close as sisters ever since. As Logan lies in bed that night, thinking over Yashida's offer, he gets a little insight from his lost love. Jean tells him that he should do it, so that they can be together. And as Logan pulls an Izzy Stevens and gets ready for some hot ghost sex, he wakes up to find Dr. Green sucking his face and leaving him with a classic case of green mist in the mouth. Gentlemen may prefer blondes, but Logan is no gentleman. Now, in the comics, Dr. Green's name is Ophelia Sarkissian, but it's never used in the movie due to copyright issues, so I'll just call her by her supervillain name Viper from now on. Logan wakes up ready for a fight, but Viper is nowhere to be found. Instead, he finds Yukio, who informs him that Yashida has passed away, and the worst part, she didn't even see it coming. At the funeral, the attendees include Viper, Minister of Justice and Mariko's fiancé Noburo, a ton of armed guards, this mystery man hanging out on the rooftops, and Shingen, who has as little respect for Logan as Logan has for him.
Your father was a good man.
He would often say the same about you. But then he was always fascinated with your kind.
Ah, white people. Logan notices some out-of-place tattoos during the procession and breaks through the crowd to warn Mariko that something's not quite right. She brushes him off, but the Yakuza cover has already been blown. One thug whips out a shotgun and blasts Logan in the gut before killing one of Yashida's guards. As Logan writhes in pain, the Yakuza make off with Mariko as our mystery man pursues them, even shooting one of them dead with his bow and arrow. Once Logan gets back to his feet, the claws come out to let the rest of them know that it's murder time. Logan uses another thug as a human shield, but that doesn't stop him from taking another bullet to his shoulder. As the chaos ensues, Viper is too busy being a millennial to run away. This Yakuza member holds a gun to her head to tell her to get off the phone for once, but she gives him the kiss of death for interrupting her latest TikTok. Logan brushes off his wounds once more and cripples a few more Yakuza. As they proceed with their kidnapping, I notice 2 more bodies in the background, who I presume are Yashida's men. We don't get to see how they died, but it's likely that they were shot in the face, just like this unlucky guy. The killing continues as Logan stabs a man through the chest while the Yakuza shoot another security guard. Logan jumps across a pond like the majestic gazelle to get a leg up on the assassins, with an assist from our mystery man with the arrows. He finally catches up to Mariko and kills one of her assailants while crippling the rest. Logan grabs Mariko and begins ushering her away from all this madness when he takes another 2 shots to his torso. But he's had enough of this bullshit already and slashes the shooter to death along with one of his colleagues. But once Logan is outnumbered, 2 Yakuza members start pummeling him with baseball bats until a couple of arrows take them out too. As the chase takes takes to the city streets, our Japanese Hawkeye gets another kill shot. Shortly after, he nails another man through the shoulder. Now, I'm using the theatrical cut of the movie, so I'm not going to count this as a kill. But after looking it up, I noticed that in the extended version, the arrow goes straight through the guy's chest. But unfortunately, we don't get to see the graphic version of it. Sorry, everybody. As Logan and Mariko duck inside a casino, one last Yakuza member pursues them. As he rushes to break down the door the two of them are hiding behind, he's met with a sharp surprise to the gullet. Once they've lost their pursuers, Mariko tells Logan that she doesn't need his help, and proceeds to abandon him at a train station. She boards a bullet train only to find that he's not giving up on protecting her, and she confides in him that she's heading to a family home far away from Tokyo, one that they'll never be able to find. As Logan cleans his wounds in the train bathroom, he's visited by an unwelcome party. A tussle ensues, which I'm sure to anyone outside of that bathroom just sounds like this scene from Austin Powers.
Who does number 2 work for?
That's right, buddy. You show that turd who's boss.
Logan tanks another shot and his claws slash clean through the train walls. When one of the Yakuza is thrown into it, he goes bye-bye forever. He stabs another one of them and then the fight gets taken outside. After taking turns dodging and weaving on top of the train, Logan outsmarts his opponent by tricking him into jumping at the wrong time. That just leaves one more assailant who gets the classic Wolverine luncheon toss. So with no idea what to do or any idea why the Yakuza would want to kill Mariko, the duo find a shady motel to lay low in for the night. As Mariko gets some sleep in what is presumably Elon Musk's bedroom, Logan keeps watch from the balcony. As he continues to lose blood, he hallucinates another conversation with Jean before passing out in the rain. Logan awakens on a table with his wounds patched up by the only doctor they could find, a veterinary student. They make a joke about Logan being a large animal, but like, he's still a human being. They do know he's not literally a Wolverine, right? Logan finally picks up on the fact that Viper stole his healing ability, which means it's time to be a bit more careful from now on. Speaking of Viper, she's off to meet with a fellow associate of hers, but only after she's finished killing this random man who mistakes her for a prostitute. It's here that we finally learn the name of our mysterious archer, Kenoichiro Harada, Yashida's head of security and Mariko's ex-boyfriend. Viper's got him on the take to capture Logan, even if he's not particularly fond of following her orders. But Viper assures him that if he wants to keep Mariko safe, he'll do what she says. Over dinner at Mariko's old family home, she drops some exposition on Logan about her arranged marriage with Noburo, and what got her so upset before her grandfather died. Yashida planned to leave his entire company to her, just to spite her father, but she doesn't want to be a girl boss just yet, and Shingen hates to see a girl boss win. So while Shingen is busy searching for his daughter, Mariko's found a new daddy. Turns out that teaching this uncultured swine how to place his chopsticks and tie his robe is grounds for a steamy makeout session that leads into off-screen sexcapades. But dude, you totally shouldn't be fantasizing about your ex at a time like this, even if she is dropping some hard truth on you.
Everyone you love dies.
Logan has a nightmare where he's attacked by a silver samurai, and Mariko calms him down. They're not the only ones having a restless sleep, however, because Yukio wakes up in a cold sweat, needing to find Logan ASAP. It turns out that old family home wasn't as secure as she thought, because the Yakuza managed to track down and kidnap Mariko, but not before Logan grabs one of them and makes him talk, confirming that they were hired by Noburo. After meeting up with Yukio, they head off to the politician's penthouse. Yukio tells Logan that she had a vision of his death, and I want you guys to remember what she says here because it'll prove pretty important later on down the line.
I see you on your back. There's blood everywhere. You're holding your own heart in your hand.
Logan takes this with a grain of salt and heads off to confront Noburo, but Yukio isn't gonna let him get himself killed, so she tags along like the absolute badass that she is.
Just think of me as your bodyguard.
They catch the sleazy Minister of Injustice in the middle of cheating on his fiancée, and I'd be lying if I said this scene didn't awaken anything in me as a teenager. Logan gives Noburo 10 words to explain why he hired the Yakuza to kill Mariko, or else he's going through a window.
You don't have the faintest idea what's going on.
How many words was that?
9.
Luckily, his 10th word saves his skin.
Shingen!
He explains that Yashida's quest for immortality, which included spending tons of money stockpiling adamantium, nearly bankrupted his company, and Shingen was left to pick up the pieces. But instead of being rewarded for his sonly duties, the company went to Mariko, leaving Shingen powerless. If Mariko were to die, however, Shingen would be the one to profit, and by proxy, Noburo. Logan decides that this revelation is cause for celebration, and tosses Noburo into the pool below.
How did you know there's a pool down there?
I didn't.
Mariko is handed over to her father, who delivers his villainous monologue, but he's not the only threatening presence in the house, as proven when 2 Yakuza members and 8 security guards are discreetly killed by Harada's Black Clan ninjas.
どうやってお前がアジア最大の
As Shingen takes Mariko outside to kill her, he's greeted by swords and so many arrows it's like he stumbled into a quiver. They take Mariko and she's reunited with her long-lost love, who asks her to come with him. Shingen is left with a less than favorable face-to-face with Viper, which results in him getting a face full of poison injected into him. Logan and Yukio show up just a tad bit too late to find a note attached to a dead security guard. After inspecting the medical equipment, Logan notices those little squirmy matrix bug things are missing, which gives him the idea to look into his heart. No, literally. Those little suckers are sapping his healing abilities, so he needs to make like Uncle Joey and cut it out. One thing you don't want interrupting your impromptu surgery is a poisoned samurai who smacks around all your equipment, leaving Logan screaming and guessing like he's playing Surgeon Simulator. The sword fight is pretty badass though. They don't call it an operating theater for nothing. Logan finally rips that nasty bugger out, which unfortunately sends him into cardiac arrest and knocks him out. Now if he is dead, it's not for long enough to add him to the count because that nifty healing factor kicks in just in the nick of time. With Yukio out of commission, Logan and Shingen engage in a mano-a-mano sword v claws fight. You really shouldn't pick a fight with a dude who literally can't die. I mean, at this point it's your own fault if you die. But Logan decides he's done killing, and he lets Shingen go, forcing him to live with the guilt and shame he's brought upon his family.
You tried to kill your daughter. Live with that.
But of course he doesn't let it go, ramming Logan through the chest with his blade.
What kind of monster are you? The Wolverine.
And Shingen dies after being impaled by Logan's claws like so many nameless goons before him. With one villain down, it's time to have a final showdown with the bigger fish. As Logan rushes to one of Yashida's facilities where Mariko's being kept, he's confronted by Harada, who pretty much tells him that they can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Go fuck yourself, pretty boy.
Logan chooses the hard way. The ninjas attack, and Logan showcases his patented stab-and-slash technique, taking out two ninjas while also fending off Harada. As Logan makes a break for it, the ninjas start firing on all cylinders. Firing poison-tipped arrows, that is, right into the mutant's back, knocking him out cold. No pun intended. He awakens strapped to a chair with the voices of Jean, Kayla, and Mariko bouncing around in his head. Viper gives Logan her supervillain spiel, and introduces him to the adamantium-plated Silver Samurai. After riling him up enough, Mr. Kitty shows his claws, giving them just what they wanted. Harada tries to console Mariko, telling her that Viper is a means to an end, and that if she works with him, they can be together. Mariko tricks him with a kiss and stabs him in the leg, giving her the chance to escape and help Logan. As the samurai gets ready to play glowing 1000-degree knife versus adamantium claws, Mariko catches him off guard, causing him to destroy Logan's chair and set him free. As they make their break for it, Harada realizes the error of his ways, and puts an arrow into Viper, buying them some time. She sheds her skin, I guess, as Logan takes on the samurai, losing 3 of his claws in the process. The samurai pins Logan down and gets ready to deliver that final blow, when Harada shoots an arrow directly into his faceplate, knocking him back. He attempts to reason with the samurai and call him off, but that only ends in glowing 1000-degree knife versus ninja, after calling him Blob for some reason. Hey! Logan pushes the samurai off the railing, giving Mariko time to say her final goodbyes to Harada. Rest in peace, not Hawkeye. The samurai gives Logan yet another manicure, while Yukio sneaks in and confronts Viper one-on-one. They tussle around for a bit, and after Yukio wraps a cord around Viper's neck, she acts like someone who just hates high fives and leaves her hanging. Do you think at her funeral they're gonna put a "hang in there baby" poster on her coffin? As the samurai bonds himself with Logan, he reveals his true identity, Ichiro Yashida. After Logan refused to transfer his healing factor voluntarily, he constructed a suit of armor to prolong his health, just long enough to steal it for himself. He begins to rapidly de-age like he's in a Star Wars movie, but is interrupted when Mariko jams one of Logan's broken claws into his skull and another into his neck for good measure. Logan rips that suit apart and grows his gnarly bone claws back, stabbing Yashida through the chest and giving him the death he had feared for so long.
You asked me to come say goodbye. Sayonara.
He's tossed into a pit and disregarded, just like the writers did with the actual Silver Samurai character when they made this movie. Logan passes out, because that's just what he does best in this movie, and sees Jean one last time.
Can you stay?
I can't.
He makes peace with himself for having to kill her, and decides that maybe a life without end can still have meaning. The movie ends with Mariko taking control of the company, and Logan and Yukio boarding a plane to destinations unknown.
What are you doing?
I'm your bodyguard.
There is an alternate ending where Yukio gives Logan a briefcase that has his comic book costume inside it, and by God what I would give to see Hugh Jackman don that silly yellow getup. But alas, that's all left to the special features section on the Blu-ray and my dreams. Our mid-credit scene finds Logan in the airport 2 years later, watching a commercial for Trask Industries. Once he gets to the security checkpoint, he notices something wrong with the metal detectors, and a familiar voice causes him to pull out those bone claws one more time. Magneto tells Logan that a weapon is being built that could bring a permanent end to the mutant race, and he wants Logan's help in stopping it. Of course Logan doesn't trust him, but he does trust everybody's favorite old bald Heaven's Gate looking motherfucker, and Logan asks a question that we're all wondering.
How is this possible? As I told you a long time ago, you're not the only one with gifts.
And yes, that is a stupid and confusing non-answer. It's a nice callback to the original film, but it does nothing to explain how he's actually alive after being exploded nearly a decade ago. The commentary on The Last Stand suggests that the brain-dead patient that he puts his consciousness into was actually his twin brother P. Xavier, but that's still highly unlikely that his brother would look exactly the same, sound exactly the same, and be paralyzed from the waist down. Maybe his legs atrophied while he was at the hospital. Maybe Professor X is using mind powers to project the likeness of Patrick Stewart. The fact that the writers leave this up to guesswork on the viewer's part is lazy and quite frankly insulting, because if they don't care about the continuity of their own series, why should we? It's moments like these that caused Fox to reboot the franchise, starting with the next movie. Let's just hope they don't mess it up again. In total, there were 46 kills in The Wolverine, and even though it's a smaller number than Logan's first solo outing, they were significantly more brutal than anything in X-Men Origins. The Platinum Batarang for coolest kill goes to Shingen. It's hard to have creative and inventive kills in a Wolverine story, because Metal Claws can only do so much. But what makes this one the most interesting variation of the old stab and slash is the amazingly choreographed sword fight that takes place just before it. And what can I say, I like a good sword fight. The Rusty Shield for lamest kill goes to Viper, because for the big baddie, she's taken out in such a quick and easy way. Like, really quick, I got whiplash just watching it.
Whiplash.
The Wolverine came out in 2013, good for him, to average reviews. Not as positive as First Class, but nowhere near as poorly reviewed as Origins. Compared to other movies in the series, it fared moderately well at the box office. That isn't to say that it tanked, however. I personally find this to be a very enjoyable action flick. If there's one thing I love about the X-Men franchise, it's the variety, and this one is a lot more hit than miss for me. As for the next movie, we'll be hopping into our TARDIS and taking a trip through time in X-Men Days of Future Past. See you then, Super Friends!